Everyone, this is Freddie with Superbike Unlimited, and we're going to bring you guys another update on the KTM 500 EXC-F, I think, street Supermoto project that we're doing. Got some really nice stuff coming today, and I wanted to show you a little bit of the process for building some of the parts that we're about to use. Today, this is going to be like a nice big step forward, and some of my favorite Supermoto stuff that we have. And what that is our custom radial bottomed Supermoto Ohlins fork that we built here in-house, and Martin's doing a set of these right now. And basically what this is it's a set of Ohlins moto forks or enduro forks that we completely disassemble. We modify them extensively in terms of length, spring, of course. Those are kind of the most fundamental things. Then we do a full custom shim stack. We typically change several components that affect the damping, set a custom oil level, and then of course we have our super nice billet radial mounted fork bottoms that also reduce offset, which is the center line of here to the center line of the fork. So you normally, for a supermoto bike, you want that value to be far less than on a motocross bike, where it's typically in the high 30s or mid 30s. Here we have a 20 millimeter offset. So we're going to go ahead and we've already got our shock made, and I'll show you that. It's around here somewhere. This guy here. Same concept, a little bit less extensive in terms of modification because we don't have to swap out any exterior components, but we changed the length, we heavily modified the damping components, and we put a different spring on it, you know, a lot bigger, especially in my case. So that's going to be a direct swap. And the forks, those do require a little bit of extra work. You're going to have to do an axle, which is typically provided, and a custom set of wheel spacers. So let Martin finish these up, and then we'll go on to the next phase. All right, guys, so we've got the bike up here on the lift, and what Martin is doing is pretty obvious. We're just going to start taking stuff off. So this is going to be a pretty comprehensive change. We're gonna, while we're doing this, yeah, we're gonna have to change a lot of components here. We're gonna swap out the fork. We've got another set of wheels, which I'll show you in just a moment. I did not want to keep Warp 9s on here. Nothing against Warp 9. I'm sure you guys are great people, but it's just not what we want on this build. And we are also going to have to make an adjustment. I want to show you guys. So you can see that that fuel tank is awfully close to that header. In fact, it's probably touching. Something tells me that that's probably not ideal. It seems like it could be risky having a really hot exhaust pipe right up against a fuel container like that. I can see it going badly, so we're gonna have to do some less than desirable adjustment there to kind of get that to clear. So we marked it, and we're basically just gonna start a little bit at a time and just kind of tapping it, giving it a little tappy, and try to clearance that. And I'll go ahead and show you these forks that we're about to throw on because they came out great as always. This is, again, our custom spec Supermoto fork, and this one is basically going to be largely tarmac only, the specification that we went with this. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still usable off-road, but it's going to be a little more harsh in an off-road situation, but going to work really well, have nice controlled feeling and tarmac, and still going to be manageable on like a dirt road or something like that. But you wouldn't want to take this on like a proper Supermoto like jump section. You could, but it would be pretty aggressive feeling. I don't think it would be the smoothest situation. So normally we run a little bit different of a setup for that. All right, so Martin's got these forks all mounted up, and these are of course a direct swap in terms of the clamp fitment. Upper and lower clamping diameters is identical on this bike. What you do have to do is, since we're using our SPS fork bottoms, those are essentially just a universal fork bottom for all Ohlins forks, and they do not take a standard KTM fork guard. So the ones that we opt to use, there's a few that fit, but the most common and easy to source is the CRF 450 set. They're a direct fit, so that's what we're going to be using in this instance. Also going to go ahead and, as you can see, I've removed those Chairbees hand guards because I didn't like the way they looked, and we're going to pop these really nice Zeta Flight hand guards, which are billet aluminum, and we'll put a nice little, they have a piece that goes here that kind of gives them a little bit more of a racy look. But I like them because they're easier to just replace a cheap part if you crash, and I just think in general they look sleeker. So we're just going to go ahead and finish that install. It's basically just the handguard kit, then there's a mounting kit for the specific size bar that you're using, and then I'll show you the little wing looking things, which are actually the same ones that we're running on the 450 here, so you can kind of get an idea of the look there. To me, a little more proper design for what we're doing. Back along, we've got this all adjusted, clearance to bit here, and this all lines up now much better. What we had to do for that is not really something we're super stoked about, to be blunt. It sounds like we got the SXF style front header, and they were like, oh, it's easy, just cut some material off, you know, grind it down. So that's what we did. Rest assured, if you were our customer and that happened, we would not accept that answer. But since we're a shop, we have no problem just taking care of it. But normally not an issue with them. That's the first time that's happened. So next we're going to finish up some of this front end stuff, and the next bit is going to be putting this caliper on. This is a biting caliper. Pretty straightforward piece, very similar to our to a Brembo Supermoto caliper that we've used in the past. It's a little bit lighter, it's less expensive. I believe it's 32-36 staggered piston, and it uses a common pad shape that we have available from Brembo or Bezra. Same caliper we're running on the 450. I'm a big fan of it. It works super well, no complaints. We're going to put that on, and then on the front wheel that we're using, which you haven't seen yet, we're going to use another one of the biting discs that we use on our 450. Again, just works really well, proven, no issues whatsoever. I believe this is a 305 by 6, so it's pretty thick. And even though it's not a 320, it has more than enough stopping power. So that's going to be going on in a minute. All right, so we're actually going to have to change pace a little bit on this because we are lacking the front wheel spacers that we need. I went through everything we've got. I just don't have enough to properly fit this. So we've got some stuff being machined up. They should be here soon. While we're dealing with that, we're just going to go ahead and get the rear going. Hopefully those front spacers will be here in a couple days. And in the meantime, makes perfect sense to just go ahead and start swapping this stuff around. So what we're going to do is go to this SMT wheel, which I want to show you just on the inside. It uses the same kind of O-ring sealing for the spokes, which is really nice in my opinion. Makes it easy to adjust them, not having to break that seal, and it just looks really tidy. And while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and use one of our favorite chains, EK3D. This is the SM version, so ideal for lower horsepower, lower displacement motorcycles. You don't have to spend the full $200 for the GP chain or whatever. So that's going to be a great option for us there. And of course, we're going to mount fresh sprockets at the same time. So, and to start, for now, I'm just going to run this tire. I've never actually tried these, but it seems like it'll be a sticky street tire. Just something to try out. Yeah, we'll see. Dunlop, I think, from what I've been told, has done a good job with that new Q5, so I think it'll be a fun tire to try out. Oh, here we go. Here's our sprockets that we're going to toss on. This is just kind of a preliminary gearing I'm going to try. We have several rears to throw on and a couple of fronts. 1545. We'll just see what that's like. Check clearance, make sure everything looks good, and we'll see how the top speed of the bike is. If need to, we've got all the way down to a 42 rear, so got some room to adjust there. One thing I wanted to just go ahead and get done is Martin and I are going to get the shock put in, and as you can see, it's a direct swap. One thing to point out with these is it does have a proprietary lower mounting bolt that has presumably a different thread pitch than the stock one, so something just to keep in mind. You got to use that Ohlins provided bolt. All right guys, so we're picking this fragmented 500 build right back up. I'm sorry these videos have just been so crazy. Obviously not the flow that we normally like to have, but I feel pretty good that we're going to be able to get some stuff done on this thing. Have to make sure we don't cuss early on in the videos, because then we get demonetized. But the problem that was holding us up previously was we had wheel spacers that weren't going to work for our setup. Went ahead and got an array made, and just in, like 1 millimeter increments, just so we can really get this perfect. and I think we have everything we need. So we're gonna go ahead and start mocking that stuff up. And then also what we're gonna be doing today is Martin is gonna be doing a small modification to our frame right here where the side stand is. We're gonna just put in, we're essentially just gonna drill and tap this little spot and put in a little stainless screw, and probably with some shims underneath the head once we get our height set. And that's just gonna effectively work as a stop for this side stand, so it doesn't just bash into our silencer right here. Naturally, we don't want this thing just wailing on it. And then on top of that, I believe this is like a Delrin end piece and it would just melt off. So there's a number of reasons why we don't want to do that. It's just not proper. So to me, that seems like the easiest thing. We tried to put like a little weight in there, and it feels like it could get squished out in time. And while it's a little bit of a pain to get in there with a drill and tap and put threads and put a screw in there, I think long term that's just the best solution. And then, like I said, we'll probably put some shims or something behind the head of the screw. That way there's not too much load on the actual shaft of the screw, whatever part's actually not threaded all the way into the frame there. So I think that's going to be a good solution. And we got our graphics in. I don't remember if I've mentioned that. They're very similar to what's on the 450. A little closer than what I intended, but I think it's going to look good. So all that and more coming. So Martin's currently fitting our side stand back on, and you can already see that there's a bolt in place there now that's essentially stopping it from hitting the silencer. So that's kind of the idea. Once he finishes torquing this, we'll get in there and have a closer look, but essentially it's just a small M5 bolt and a little washer, a shim underneath it. And that's going to give us the adjustment we need. Hopefully we don't see too much wear on the side stand, like deflection from that bolt that'll allow it to get closer quickly. And if it does, we can just back that bolt off and add another shim in there. All right, there you can see that. You can kind of see already that's going to be kind of beating up the side stand. I don't really see an easy solution for that right now, other than potentially putting some heat shrink or something on top of it. Either way, it's going to degrade that. So for now, we're just going to roll with this, and we'll deal with it as any potential errors arise. But yeah, that's kind of how it works, you know. Definitely an improvement. So we'll just keep an eye on it and on to the next bit. Fender guards, right now we have some temporary CRF 451s in place. We're actually going to switch to the newer generation, but these are really close to the tire, so he's just going to trim off that inner bit right there, get it away from the tire. While he's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and start fitting up our braking system. Again, we're using this biting caliper, same one we're using on our 450 race bike. Of course, I'm going to use titanium hardware and some billet aluminum spacers. I think we're going to need somewhere between 5 and 7 mils. I'm going to start with the 7s, and we'll adjust accordingly. All right, so we've got this all mocked up, and essentially what we want to test first of all if we could do a wheel change without removing the caliper, which is what Martin's about to do right now. I think we can pull it forward. There we go, nice. So that's one nice benefit of using a smaller diameter disc like the one that we have is you don't have, like if you're running a 320, you're never going to be able to do that. I believe what we have on the bike right now is a 305. That is one benefit of that. Obviously they also weigh a little bit less of a gyroscopic effect because it's a smaller OD disc, and those things have tons of braking power. It's exactly the same size that I use on the 450, which if you guys follow our channel, you've probably seen this guy right here. And it has more than enough stopping power. I've honestly, on that bike, I've even thought about trying something smaller, like a 295 or something like that, just to see what it's like, because there's still plenty of times that I overload the front end essentially with my braking, and there's just a lot of stopping there. So what we've just done is we finished essentially centering everything up. We got our spacer combo dialed in on the wheel, and then of course it's also really important, especially when you change triple clamp width, you know, because the standard, you know, you can run triple clamps anywhere from 190, 195, 200, 205. Those things directly impact how your disc is going to align within your caliper. So all these spacing things you have to sort out. Obviously, the most obvious one is getting the actual caliper spacing off of the fork lug so that it's, you know, centered correctly on the disc. But also you have to make sure that the actual spacer on the wheel to the disc is correct, because you got to make sure that your brake disc is centered correctly inside that that caliper. So the way you do that is by running, for example, these guys. We have an array of them, different sizes for mocking things up and stuff like that. But we typically have notes, which in this case we're able to get it right on the first try, but because we referenced some previous setup data on a different bike. But you need something like this to make sure you're perfect, because if you don't, you might have brake drag. Either way, the braking system's certainly not going to be functioning optimally if you're not centered in the caliper. So at the very least, you want to just make sure that that's correct. Trying to get all this stuff as perfect as possible so that when you're riding the motorcycle, everything's just seamless and as it should be. All right, everybody, so Martin's been chipping away on this thing. We've got our Behringer Master bled up, feels really nice. We've got the Q5 front mounted. We actually did get that in time to not have to use the race tire. This is kind of kinked and awkward looking because we wanted to make sure that the Master was the high point where we were bleeding, so we're going to take that back off, and that'll make this look more normal and routed correctly. And then something else that's really important on these that Martin's working on right now is this Oberon master cylinder. A major point of failure on these motorcycles, regardless of how many updates KTM seems to bring, is the stock slave cylinder. I think I just called that a master cylinder. That is not a master cylinder. But these are notorious for failing, and when it happens, your bike's essentially rendered useless until you replace the thing. So better just to get ahead of it. I've never heard of one of these taking a crap on somebody, so super good investment at 100 and change. And plus it looks a lot nicer. It's made out of billet. You can choose a color that matches your motorcycle. So it's just a no-brainer. I've personally been in a situation where my bike was disabled after 2 laps at a track on a Ducati because of this failing. So I'm a huge fan of these, but this is a specific issue on KTM and Husky models. So definitely consider that. We'll put the link in the description for the one that we use, but it's a great piece. I see that Martin has now installed our Zeta revolver shift lever, and on the end of this we have our Get shift sensor. We use this combination just because it's super easy to install the sensor on this. You know, it basically plug and play. And what we do is we make an interface cable essentially that makes the Get quick shift sensor plug and play on our Taipan. So what we'll do is we'll run this up to the Taipan ECU up in here, and there is a plug. It's going to be this one right here. So we'll route that accordingly, secure it as needed with zip ties, and then plug that in here. Actually, I'm sorry, that's not the right one. That's the programming one. But anyway, there's a larger cable up. We'll fish it out in just a moment that has multiple inputs, and that's the one we're going to use. So with that, this will allow, you know, full throttle clutchless upshifts as you would get on like a sport bike or something like that. It's a really useful tool. You have tunable cut times with the Taipan, so I've already got that pre-configured, and it's going to be good to go. And then next we're going to be installing some foot pegs. Obviously these not the nicest, and we've got these really nice Spider off-road pegs. I actually love these. I think they're some of the nicest foot pegs on the market for Supermoto use. They actually have adjustable height, which you can see here. So you can actually set the height based on your preferences. And what's great about these is this foot peg end piece here is like a Delrin, and it's replaceable. So if you, instead of having a foot peg A that's really like the more common ones, they don't have this cutout here, and they're relatively low to the ground already, and then you have this big slider that puts the thing down here, so you run out of ground clearance. You're dragging pegs all the time. I feel like this is a much superior solution, and it just looks a lot better. I mean, this is a proper piece of kit, so excited to get those on. All right, guys, so we're progressing this along nicely. We've got our beautiful Spider foot peg installed. We've got our shift revolver shift lever with the quick shift sensor. Everything's routed and plugged in. There's that plug I was referencing previously. Going on over to the other side, we now have, of course, matching Spider peg there, and a Zeta trigger brake lever. Really, I just did that for aesthetic purposes. It's a nice looking piece. It does have adjustable length to make sure that it matches the, you know, the size of your foot and your ergonomics, but that's just kind of a, I just think it's a nice looking piece. So to wrap things up on this, oh, and we've got our biting rear disc. We did find those actually, so that's on the bike now. Just a nice piece, a little more heavy duty than the standard one. And we're gonna use a EK3D SM chain. The chain that was on this thing was pretty gross, so This is going to give us an improvement in terms of weight reduction. It's obviously much nicer looking, and these are the Supermoto. Sorry about that, guys. We've been having some bizarre issues with our camera and SD card setup recently, and it's caused some fragmented video. What I was saying is this EK3D SM chain is essentially the same one that we run on our super bikes, but it's just a bit lighter and has a lower tensile strength, having not have the requirement to handle 200 plus horsepower. Obviously they don't need to make it quite as beefy, so it's perfect for this application. I really love these for pretty much any Supermoto stuff. So the other thing that, as a result of the camera, was when I'm editing some of the clips from this video, I realized that pretty much all of the wheel footage that I shot was unusable because the audio got screwed up. So I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about these wheels because they're actually super cool. It's the first time we've used them on a shop bike, but we've been supplying them for customers for a while. So the brand is SMT. These are essentially a very similar design to the wheels that we've been running, which are Alpina. This is a French company, and basically it's a similar concept in terms of it's a billet hub, a forged rim, and fully customizable color options. And it has a O-ring sealed nipple design just like Alpina in terms of the tubeless configuration. So it's a really clean setup to be tubeless, very nice, and a bit of a beefier wheel compared to Alpina. The one thing about those that we've seen is they're really light, but they also have kind of thin spokes. And if you're hard on your stuff, you want to stay on top of maintaining those, torquing them regularly and replacing the spokes as needed. So I expect these will be a little more maintenance free. The trade-off is that they weigh slightly more, a few more ounces per wheel. So that's, you know, something you have to figure out if that's going to make sense for you. For this being a road bike, I wanted it to be pretty much as trouble-free as possible. For us, we don't want to have to really be on top of this thing like we do with the race stuff. So I think it's going to be a good option, and they look really good. For now, we've just mounted up our Q5 tires as we showed previously. The one thing that we did have an issue with is this Q5. It's a 160/60. It's a bit wider than expected. Martin put the calipers on this, and I want to say he said they were about 15 millimeters wider than our Metzler rear, and that's side to side. We've got some chain rub, so this is something probably many of you guys have seen. I've personally had it on one of my own street Supermotos, and eventually what'll happen is this chain will just cross hatch the hell out of the side of the tire and clearance the rubber needed. And generally it's not ideal, but it's okay. We've seen a million Supermotos with that setup, but what we're going to try to do is offset this whole drive line a little bit and try to shim. Not sure exactly how much we're going to be able to do. Maybe the front sprocket, certainly the rear, and try to just get it off the tire a little bit. I don't necessarily want to have a mechanical device here that just pulls on the chain a bunch to keep it off of the tire. So something that we're going to have to sort out. I don't think it's going to be a big issue, but one of those things that we're going to have to resolve. I don't necessarily want this thing to be slicing up the tire every time we take it for a spin, and it would certainly do that right now. So, and we may have to just run a different rear tire. We'll figure it out. So overall, bike's pretty much ready to ride. We've got some work to do still with this current config. We're going to have to put it on the dyno and actually map it in. It does run and feels normal now, but it's for sure going to need some custom mapping, and to get the most out of it in terms of reliability and performance, that's going to be the way to go. So we'll do that in the next video. We've got a whole bunch of other really cool stuff planned for this bike, so even in the next coming videos, we've got some stuff I think is going to be really exciting. So I think that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for sticking with us. Sorry the video is kind of fragmented and the video issues. Obviously, we're not, you know, videographers and vloggers and stuff over here, so thanks for sticking with us and enjoying the content that we're producing. Be sure to like this video, comment below if there's something you want us to mention in the next one, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.